Welcome back to another episode of Broker's Blueprint. I am your host, Martino Picariello, joined by my two co-hosts. We got the full team back. We got Chris Terio to my right with iFundCities.
What's up, guys?
We got Nick Giganti here, President and CEO of the Hunters Commercial Real Estate Team.
What's going on, guys?
Nick, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about developing ground up new construction. I think this is a great topic to talk about. I get these questions a lot from people that want to buy a piece of land or some dilapidated structure that, you know, you go through it and you're like, it very well should just be taken down. So we're just going to go through the steps of like what you should be looking at, because a lot of people go into this blind. They really don't understand like the steps that they need to take. You know what I mean? And Chris could, get into the financing portion of this. But so you have a property that you're looking at and you want to build, your dream house or an investment property. The first thing that you're going to have to look for, or you want to look for first, is the property already, does it have approved plans for development? That is a major thing because it takes a ton of time to get those plans approved. And
how much time, just roughly?
So it's all going to depend on like the jurisdiction that you're in. In Philadelphia, that could take, Good luck. Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck. And this goes for like every city and jurisdiction. Some are a lot easier. There's places down south, in the Sunbelt states that turnaround could be a month, 2 weeks, I've heard.
Houston, Texas, no zoning.
No zoning in Houston,
Doesn't
Texas.
exist.
Wow. I heard a client of mine, his friend is building right by University of Tennessee, got his plans approved in 2 weeks for like
From
water
like raw land to building permit?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Wow.
What we call that is the time tax. So when you buy a property and you're just sitting on it waiting for your blueprints to get approved and getting your permits, it takes time. So let's say Philadelphia, that could be, a 6-month, 8-month ordeal. If you have to go through zoning, it could be even longer. So let's kind of like step it back. So you have just a raw piece of land, you want to build your house on it. A lot of jurisdictions they're gonna have water management, that you have to have an engineer approve the water management. The house is going to displace dirt that would soak up water when it rains, so that water has to go somewhere. That's a separate approval. You're going to want to talk with an architect for the design of your house. An architect, I can't say it or stress the fact of getting a good architect, because a good architect isn't only going to design your house, they're going to do all of the submissions to the jurisdiction. And if they don't have that process down, it could just make that time to get your approved permits even longer. So you want to have a good architect that understands the process for the submission in whatever jurisdiction that you're looking at. But when you are getting your plans done, the civil engineer will also be surveying the property, looking at the boundaries of the property. You'll also have to get what's called a geotech report, which is, to put it in layman's terms, they basically core into the dirt that the house is going to sit on. And they look at the substrate and they look to see how dense it is. If it's very sandy, it's going to change the foundation footers that the foundation sits on. So if it's very soft soil, you're going to have a beefed up foundation. That's going to change your pricing. So these are all things that you are going to have to kind of assemble a good team for. Again, first thing is your architect, and then second thing is your civil engineer. Go ahead.
Question. So the way to protect yourself in that process, and I cut you off when you were just kind of breaking it down, but I always, ask how long does that take to kind of understand, the geotest, the zoning, like the feasibility analysis from the architect, get the plans. How long should you make your due diligence, or like, how short can you make it, in certain areas, I guess 2 weeks, some areas a little longer, and it's important.
Great question. So if I'm offering on a property that is a piece of land that is not developed, I would have no less than a 30-day due diligence. Okay. I would probably even extend it to, I would put in my initial offer with a 60-day.
Yeah.
And then that person might kind of negotiate you down a little bit. But again, you're going to have to get that architect to do what you just said, a feasibility study, which just means that the house that you want to build or the multifamily that you want to build, can it be done there with the zoning? There's other setback rules. You know, a property might be 50 yards wide by 50 yards deep, or let's just go 50 feet by 50 feet, but there's a setback of 10 feet from the front of the property. There's setback, there's open air that you need to have. And then, of course, water management, where's that going to go? So everything has to coincide. Your architect's going to take care of all of that, right? But during that 30 to 60 days, while the architect is going through that, putting together the feasibility, unless you're paying cash for that, and now Chris could kind of talk about that, you're going to have to figure out your financing, right? So you're going to be not only purchasing the land, but then you're going to have to put a value to, like, how much is this building going to cost? So, like, how does that coincide? I'll let you talk about that. It's like, on the financing side, how do you guys look at that?
Yeah.
When you go lending, and like what kind of consider?
So there's two schools of thought. So if I'm an investor or just like I'm building something for myself and you go to a lender, to your point, you can either negotiate the entitlements into the contract. So like you see a piece of land, you like it. Let's say it's completely raw land and you know you want to build a single family home there, but you got to go through the entitlement process. You could go get that under contract and you can structure, you guys know this, like you can structure in a way where you don't have to close on that land until it's fully approved for like what you want to build on it. I see that a ton with our investors, which is like it mitigates your risk, right? Which is a great way to structure it, especially when you're talking about like bigger tracts of land to build like 10 plus homes, bigger deals, right? You see that a lot.
Yeah.
So pros of that, it obviously mitigates your risk of like, will this be approved, after I take down the land, right? You're good there. You also have to think, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm just going to step in for the viewer. So what Chris is saying is you would basically bifurcate your due diligence process. You would have like a 30 or 60-day due diligence just to see if what you could build can be built there, right? Mm-hmm. And then you would have another additional due diligence that is specifically for the zoning and for the for you to actually get your permits. So basically what you're saying to the seller is, listen, I'm going to buy this property, but I'm going to wait until my permits are in hand so that I'm not paying interest on this land for 8 months. And that's the best way to negotiate a deal. However, some sellers, of course, they're like, I want a deal now. Yeah. So that 30 to 60 days would at least tell you, you could build this.
Yep.
But you ultimately would want to wait to get your permits to then say, all right, I'm going to close.
Yeah. So, and before I kick it back to you, just to even put it simpler, it's like people don't take the step to build ground up or even do a rehab because they're like, oh, it's too risky. There's too many risky variables, but I don't think enough people know about just how to mitigate that and actually get started. And if it doesn't work out after those 30 to 60 days, you're okay. You know, like your deposit's still in hand. Maybe you spend a little bit of money on the soft costs of getting the architect, but you didn't spend hundreds of thousands on the land before, and then you're in the hole because this land is not approved. So back to you on the financing side, but that's a big thing.
Yeah, no, great explanation. So like, if you get through that initial 30, 60-day DD period, and then you're like, okay, cool, it looks like what I'm applying for is going to be approved, you're probably spending real money. You're not buying the land, so you're not putting all that cash out, but you're probably spending some money on lawyers, zoning, entitlements, permits, all that stuff, right? Architectural plans, zoning plans. So when it's finally approved, or it's going to be approved, right? And maybe it's like 2 weeks, 30 days. Then you would go to your lender and say, hey, I'm about to take down this land. It's by the time we close our loan, it's going to be approved to build 4 homes, right? I subdivided the land, whatever it is. And you actually have those approvals. Then you could come to a lender like iFundCities or whoever else, and you say, hey, here's now, I got my team, Nick mentioned, your team. So here's my architect, here's the plans, here's my agent, found the property, here's my, like, you're my lender,
civil engineer,
here's my contractor,
right,
here's the line item budget. So you go to your lender with all those things, and then you're ready to take down the land. That's the first school of thought.
Yeah.
So so there's a lot of pros to that approach. The only con is the other way is, okay, I'm actually going to take down this land, and it's just raw land, not entitled for anything. That seller's probably happy because they're like, cool, I'm out of it. There's no contingencies, right? There's no zoning approval contingency. So you take down that land, you actually go through that whole entitlement process yourself. You already own the land. The only difference between, thought 1 and 2 is in the second scenario, you've actually value engineered that land. So let's say you bought it for $400,000, and then you go through all these entitlements and you subdivide it. Now you could build 2 homes on that one piece of land, and that each lot then appraises for $350,000. You now have $700,000 worth of land, and that's what a lot of land developers, they might not even build anything. They might just go sell that to a ground up builder, or you go to a lender, and now your cost basis in the land goes from $500,000 to $750,000. So when Chris at iFundCities gives you a loan, I'm going to use $750,000 plus your budget, not $500,000 plus your budget. You're going to get more.
So you could basically get more money, and then can you pay yourself back?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. You get basically cash out on the purchase on a higher basis because you actually increase the value of the land. Okay, that's like the hack. Now, again, there's pros and cons, right? There's a lot more risk in that, but got to risk that get the biscuit.
That risk and reward. You got to risk it to get the biscuit.
No money.
Exactly. And for the sellers, it's like, why take that $400,000 offer? Cash is because it's clean, it's easy.
Right.
If you might be able to get 500, but you're waiting for the entitlements, especially in the city, there's just no guarantee. So on the sell side, there's benefits to taking it cash as is.
Yeah.
But there's also benefits to being like, hey, let's wait for this guy to do his thing for 30, 60 days and see if maybe we can squeeze out a little bit more. But I like how you can increase your equity just on the land side before you even build any improvements.
By the way, you could probably flip that land when you have to buy it. Once it's improved, you still don't own it, you could just go line up your next buyer if you don't actually want to build something.
Yeah, a lot of wholesalers
do
that.
It's already there. Yeah. But lending wise, I can't lend on the higher value if you are just buying it. I got to lend on your purchase price. That's the only caveat.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. I gotcha. Yeah, and again, it's like the whole rule of thumb with real estate is you want to try to keep as least amount of your own cash
in the deal, right?
In the deal. It's always like that. That's why when it was like 3% interest, like when it was years ago, people were buying these multifamilies, might be like a shitty multifamily. You fix it up, you raise the cash flow.
Yeah.
Multifamily buildings are the intrinsic value is totally based on the cash flow that it brings in.
Right.
If you could raise the cash flow, now that building's worth more, you refinance at a higher rate, you get all of your hard-earned money back out,
right? And
then you use that cash to then use for your next development.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that's cool. That's cool.
I think a lot of people always think they have to sell to make money, when it's simply like just knowing a good lender who can give you like the refi numbers and be like, yeah, you're getting, if not all, a majority of your money out of this deal.
Yeah.
Maybe you leave like a little bit in, but cash flowing. Now you have your cash back.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
And I think that's another thing for people that are sitting on land or that are sitting on buildings.
Land banking, yeah.
Land banking. It's like before you just go and sell this, you should be talking with an agent that knows what they're doing, because you could be like, listen, if you just go through the entitlement process yourself, you could maybe take this garage that's sitting on like a big piece of property, get it approved for a multi-unit building, and then just sell it with the approved plans. And now a garage that you might have gotten $500,000 for, now you're getting $800,000 for like a $25,000 to $30,000 investment.
Yep.
So it kind of works both ways. As a speculator, you could just be buying land to get it entitled to sell at a profit.
Yeah.
Without doing any of the building.
Yep.
Or you could be that guy who's holding on to the land, and instead of, just quickly selling it and not understanding the whole.
Specifically in Philadelphia too, you see zoning overlays, right? So it's so important to just pull your zoning permit. Like let's say RM1, which is by right residential multifamily. Like I've seen this personally and for other people. You own a lot, you pull the zoning permit, it's RM1. There was a zoning overlay, everything got put back to RSA 5, which is single family. So all of that real estate immediately became less marketable, right? Less valuable. And then the people that had the RM1 because they pulled their zoning permit, they were up.
Right.
Because then it was just more desirable. You could build multifamily there.
And question to your earlier point with like when you're lending on the land, like that guy subdivides it, makes it $250K more by just getting it approved, right? Is he allowed to now just put that land up as his collateral if he bought it cash in that second scenario?
Yeah.
Versus putting down another cash, deposit?
Yeah, the caveat with that is he's going to have to buy it cash or raise equity, like LP money, limited partners. Buy it cash, and then to come to iFundCities, we don't like lending on just raw land. We will if you need help, but yeah, like you need it shovel ready at that point when you come to IFC or another lender. Yeah,
and you'll be like, all right, the land is for rounder numbers. It's like, all right, the land you have is 100,000 or $1 million, right? Just to use zeros, and you can lend up to. Is it 85% LTV? So it's like you'll take that and you'll do a calculation of like I could lend up to this, or
it's not LTV, it's LTC. So lenders like us, most lenders, we're going to look at your cost basis. So that's the point in increasing your cost basis in the land because of the equity that you've put in. Right. That's going to increase your your total cost. Total cost is hard and soft cost construction plus your land, right? So the combination of those. We might lend anywhere from 80 to 90 LTC loan to cost. So that's the multiplying by your land basis plus your hard and soft construction.
All that cost combined.
Right.
That's why you have the cost sheet brought to you and everything.
That's why you
items, every cost that's
correct
included.
Yeah.
Smart.
So say if it's $100,000 property and then you spend $100,000 on entitlements, $200,000.
Yeah.
Then it's going to cost you $800,000 to build. That's $1 million.
Right.
So before the construction even begins, you would need, you said what, 15% down, 150 grand?
Yeah. Here, put it this way. Let's say you're buying the land for $100,000 and you have $900,000 in cost. So it's $1 million of cost, of true cost. Let's say you did option A where you buy it entitled. So I'm going to give you 85 LTC on that. So that's an $850,000 loan, right? 100 plus 900, $1 million total cost, 85 LTC, $850,000 loan. If you actually add value and by the time we do the loan, the land appraises for $400,000. Your new cost basis is $1.3 million. 400 plus 900. I'm going to lend you 85 LTC on $1.3 million. Then you're going to have a much higher loan.
Much higher loan. And then the interest, it's not like you're paying the interest on $1 million right off the bat.
No. That's in holdback in escrow.
Yeah.
And you're only paying when you draw down.
When you're
We talked about that a couple episodes back, where it's like you're only getting hit on interest on what you pulled.
Correct.
So
yeah.
You have the right to that 1.3.
Yeah.
You might only use half of that.
So
it's great to have that flexibility in case of things coming up. And I always talk about this with my developer clients. Developing is about making the best of bad situations. There's always something that's going to come up, and having that flexibility. And it goes back to a good acquisition price, right? But when you buy it so high, the numbers become so crunched, and then you can't really work with the right people. You're always constantly looking to nickel and dime throughout the rest of the project.
Yep.
Which I've worked with people who nickel and dime every little thing, from painters to the lenders to even like the title company at closing. They're like, oh, this one seems like, I'm like, no, title's all the same, man. Like, you can't really shop that. But then you work with other guys on the flip side who are so well prepared. Couple guys come to mind with like Lapstone, Axe Builders, Green Tree Group. Like some of the developers I've worked with, man, they're just like, yeah, there's no problem. Like we got this kind of covered. We thought about this. We knew this could come up. So it's always just to make that point, making the best of bad situations, and being prepared for those things. Just for something on my project, someone just broke into our place, you know, like right. Like,
oh man,
we got a new pane of glass lined up already. We had like 4 panes of glass just for that window because we were like, if someone's gonna break in, this is probably where it's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's in Point Breeze, you know, it's gonna happen.
The only thing?
Contractors, tools and shit. So I was like, thank God they didn't take the cabinets out of the kitchen though. I've seen it really bad.
Yeah.
I've
had like appliances stolen. And,
yeah, that's common.
It's usually always an inside job, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, which one of you bastards fucking, I know.
Who was it? Who was it? But just stuff like that. I mean, not to scare anyone, but like it's gonna happen. I think you need to anticipate all those scenarios, and I think experience is a huge key piece to it, which we all bring through, not if it's our own deal, but other people's deals we've worked on, that collaborative approach. We've heard every story in the book pretty much at this point. Yeah. And if we haven't, we know someone who's going to be able to shed light on it. So it's,
and we build what in the budgets to mitigate that?
Contingency.
Buffers.
Boom.
Okay.
Contingency. Line item.
I was close.
What percentage usually?
10% is a general rule of thumb. You know, if you have a ton of experience, like deals completed will allow you 5%. It's kind of like, all right, you do this. We trust you.
And you don't have to touch it, right? It's just there.
No, you don't have to touch it, but it's also great to have, you know, even if, let's say things come within budget, as long as you're moving through the project, you can still draw down on that as like a pro rata completion percentage. So if I'm 50% through this build, I can just draw down 50%. And that could help with, I mean, if you run a big construction company, it could help with some overhead expense. Like, it's just nice to have that in there, right? For sure.
Can you go over interest reserve?
Yeah.
Because that, I think, is another one that is kind of like abstract that people don't understand.
And different, you know, lenders view it differently. Some capitalize it in costs, some don't. Largely in our space, like the debt fund space, you don't capitalize it. That's not considered like true cost.
What do you mean when you say that they don't capitalize it?
Meaning that they're not paying interest on it.
Well, meaning like your but we were just talking about cost basis. So you got your purchase price and let's just say hard construction cost. That's what a lot of lenders in our space would view as your total cost. When in reality, you got closing costs, you know, title fees, you got interest. There's a lot of stuff you're not including. So we work with you to talk about like, okay, what's your real cost basis here? We don't fund a line item for interest reserve. Like we don't do that, but we find ways to build it into the budget, right?
So let's go back to that example.
Sorry, not the budget, the actual loan.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to that example of, you know, 100K acquisition, 900K in costs. How would that scenario break down on a 12-month project typically with what typically, let's just say a 10% interest rate? Like how would that kind of look after 12 months or, you know, whatever, however long it takes.
Yeah, probably 11%. All
right, hey.
As of today, 11%. Last week, maybe 10.
No, I couldn't help myself. So it's hard to, so we talked about interest on drawn dollars. It's hard to figure out what the interest paid today, like over that entire project, is going to be.
You almost need to draw a schedule.
It's
like,
correct.
This is probably when I'll draw.
Draw schedule, right? But things never go according to plan. Like, also, are you going to be in and out of this thing in 8 months or 15 months? Right? That sounds like a bigger budget. You know, how many projects you building? So, anyways, it's hard to gauge. So, general rule of thumb is we'll do 6 months IR on total loan, right? Which is probably going to get you the full loan amount. If we're escrowing for the total life of the loan, we'll just throw that into like an interest escrow account. And all it does is decrease your initial loan proceeds, right? So you're bringing that, but you're either bringing it cash or we're decreasing the initial loan amount. That's what lenders do.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So instead of getting $1 million, whatever, instead of you lending the 850 grand, it would be 800 with 50 grand in a car.
Pretty much, right?
Smart.
It's built in your loan. It's still loan proceeds, but
Okay, smart.
Yep.
Let's go back to why even build up new construction? You know, for me, I have my one reason is the predictability of it versus the unpredictability.
I was just about to say, I mean, when you're building something ground up, you could basically, if you have experience, you start to realize like, this is exactly what it's going to cost me. You buy some building that's kind of dilapidated or needs work, all of a sudden you're pulling down some walls and you're like, oh shit, there's knob and tube wiring. And like this was totally covered up. There's a lot of like surprises that you could get by fixing up a property that's already there. On the flip side, like Chris was saying, there's also the opportunity to really raise value of land by bringing it through those entitlement processes to like really bring it to its like full value. And those are where the deals are. That's where there's like big deltas of like what the land is actually worth, because a seller might sell and not understand what the property could really be. And they're like, yeah, it's just a garage. I'll sell it for $100,000. It's like, well, actually you could build a 10-unit building on this property. You know what I mean? And that's where the real value is. So that's why most people want to do new construction. It's predictability. You can know your numbers very well. And then it's also, you know, actually just going through the process of the entitlement, you're increasing your value.
I have a question for both of you. So what's easier to sell, new construction or renovation?
For investors,
I know it's not that blanket.
Yeah, it's not that blanket.
See, I know, but
I got my answer. But
you got your answer. I would say everybody and their mother right now is looking for an outdated multifamily.
Outdated multifamily.
Yeah, like you could go in. It's got good bones. You're not changing the floor plan. You're just going in.
Yeah. Doing
like kitchens and baths, raising rents, increasing the value of the building so that you could refinance out of it.
Okay.
That's like everybody.
How about I meant more for sale product.
For sale product?
Yeah.
Again, let's just go multifamily. If someone is buying something that's new construction, there's no ability to really pull cash out. So if you have an investor that has a lot of cash, that a stabilized new construction is fine. No problems. It's a brand new building, but you're sinking a lot of cash into it. If you're like a savvy investor that does this a lot, they're probably looking for something that needs a little bit of work so that they could, again, raise the value, pull a new loan on it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think I know what you mean. It's like, what's more desirable to buyers? Like if they're in the market and they want something turnkey, I always feel new construction is going to sell better.
Easier to sell,
It's like you usually get a 1-year builder warranty with it. You usually get some kind of abatement if it's a full 10-year a couple years ago. Now it's a 5-year, basically a 10-year step down. So like the incentives of just that alone, I think, is what draw people to new construction. And then also it's clean, it's new, it's you know what I mean? Like it has that kind of new car smell for a while until you start cooking Indian food in the kitchen and fucking ruins the whole, you know, it's like eating in your car. You just don't do it. But no, these houses are typically you know, they're inspected a little bit more as well, I feel like. The inspectors come out, especially in the city, every phase of the project. So after your MEPs, after your drywall, and then obviously after the finished product. So I just think there's a little bit more eyes on it. Buyers are more comfortable to pull the trigger on a brand new construction versus a rehab, especially a poor done rehab, which we see too many in the city. Like you see so many guys not
lipstick on a pig.
Lipstick on a pig. They don't even pull permits. So that's a piece of advice I'll give to anyone right now is if you're looking at any rehab projects, did they pull permits? Because new construction, it's like obviously they had to.
Yeah.
There was one scenario where there was actually underpinning required on a project near ours, and they put a stop order on it because somehow, some way, they found out they didn't underpin the basement.
Oh my God!
Yeah, because they knew that would have jacked up their costs, $20,000 to $30,000 just to underpin, right? So
what's the cost of demoing an already built building now?
Too much, Jesus, dude! I can't imagine. I have no idea what they're gonna do with that. And I don't even know what happens to buildings like that didn't. They did a new construction, but they didn't do everything right. They're caught
fall down.
They're gonna get knocked down. So if you buy new construction, back to your question, it's a lot safer of a play. People have their eyes on it a little bit more, and it's more predictable when you get in there.
I agree with Nick. Like I think it's like as a investor and a lot of our clients, if you asked, I'd probably say 8 out of 10 would be like, I'd prefer to build new construction. You just know what you're in for. You don't take down a wall and oh shit, there's mold everywhere. Like you just know what you're gonna get.
Yeah. I was actually gonna say it's. If you buy, like, you know, in our city, you get a lot of these like 2-story homes. These buildings have been up for 80, 100 years. And then you have a guy that goes in there with no permits and he just like changes the kitchens and baths, does it. And I know it's not the right way to do it, but I always say that's probably like the best tenure. That's the best abatement you'll ever get. Because actually in the eyes of the city, I hate to say it, in the eyes of the city, the city thinks that the house was never fixed up.
Right.
So I know people that have bought houses that had no permits pulled, and it's fine. Everything was done right. It was done up to code.
Structural, right?
Yeah, there was no structural. Yeah, and their taxes are super low because in the eyes of the city,
hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. So they think it's just
the unspoken abatement.
It's the unspoken abatement.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say
the unwritten abatement.
The unwritten abatement. I don't want to like say that that's the right way to do it, but if you have like a construction background and everything looks good, it's actually.
What happens if you get caught? Like, is that an easy permit or is that?
I think for kitchens and baths it'd be
easy. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys that try to do unpermitted work. They get caught by L&I.
Yeah.
It's like we're shutting you down until you get.
Got it.
So you got to get your permit, and you might have to open up some walls to show like how the plumbing was done or the electrical. But I just know some people that have bought properties that were redone without permits, typically years ago.
Yeah.
And as a benefit, they have really low taxes.
Question: can you go to your lender who helped you buy that deal and just kind of do a cash out refinance or get your equity out? So let's just say you bought it for 100. Sometimes kitchens and baths, if you bought it right, can make the property 200, 250, and you only put in a quarter. Now can you go but as long as the city doesn't know,
of course,
the lender can know, and then you get your cash out of the deal. And
the lender's going to use the appraisal as long as it's seasoned for 6 months.
The city's not involved in any of that process, though. So to your point, the taxes stay low, the value goes up. Yeah. I think it's better to hold it, right? Because you have a tax abatement on it. You don't want to just sell that now.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, like, if you are buying something that was just flipped, and you want to check that, but if you're holding it, it's like you already know what you did. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
However, I do think, though, if you refinance and you take a big loan against it, then the city might say, well, how did they take that loan? And then the taxes may go
up. Would they catch you for that?
I feel like single family Point Breeze.
It would
like Center City, you're renovating anything.
Yeah.
Or
maybe Center City.
Yeah, like certain little markets where you have like tons of foot traffic, someone's gonna notice something changed.
Yeah.
So
go into the weeds for stuff like that. North Philly, Brewery Town,
tertiary neighborhoods.
Exactly. Don't go to Rittenhouse.
Don't go to Old City or Rittenhouse. Yeah.
Any more on the ground?
No, I think that's like a good kind of like, just a good groundwork discussion for people out there that, think that they want to do it and don't know the process. The process is a little bit more kind of, it's longer than you think. There are a lot of things that you need to look into. And again, that's why you should be reaching out to the right people. It first starts with the right broker. Then it's also speaking with the right banker. iFund, they do these types of loans. And then it's like assembling the right team. The contractor, I didn't talk about that. Having a good contractor. Do not nickel and dime contractors. You get a good contractor, you pay them what they want, what they're asking for, because they're going to deliver. I can't tell you how many times you've seen it. We've all seen it. You go cheap, you get cheap with construction.
The cheapest guy is never the cheapest.
Never. Because you're going to have to redo everything. It's going to cost you time.
Or it's going to take double the amount of time, and you're going to pay interest for double the amount of time.
Exactly. It always comes out in the wash.
Yeah.
And you're going to enjoy the process a lot less.
Yep.
Because they're typically not professional. They're typically a little bit
bad communication. You don't know what the hell's going on. It's like you want to work with a professional. And they cost money. Just do it.
Yeah.
I want to wrap the episode by just stating, how do we value what the land is worth? Because I get this question all the time. How do you know that land is worth 100? And where do you kind of start? And it's always, I always say, start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
It's always like, what is going to be here? And I know the ARV comps so well from just seeing deal after deal. We run those ARV comps. So, and it's hard to find them sometimes, but good example would be like the Point Breeze lot we're building. We had a really good feeling with the 10-year tax abatement. It was going to be worth $590 once it was built. Okay, $590. Let's just go up to $6, right?
Right.
For round numbers. The construction's going to be, and then you go to the construction.
Reverse engineer
it.
Yeah.
Like costs are going to be $300, which is pretty low now because of all the shit that Chris and I talked about with tariffs starting to jack things up, and interest rates, right? So you go 300, but now your interest reserve is 50K because that project's 6 months and it's going to be ticking. So, all right, we're all in 3. We got a 6 in mind. I mean, like maybe 50 in soft costs for architect, interest and all that stuff, MEPs, right? Or the ground testing, the soil testing. But anyway, all right, what kind of spread do we want now? And then you always, I feel like, want to budget 25% of a spread.
Profit margin,
Yeah, I think like 30 is aggressive. Like you're not going to get a lot of deals to pencil at 30, at least right now. Back then, it was like you could probably get 40% off of a flip, right? Because construction was like 250.
Yeah.
Land was
values
50.
kept going up.
Exactly. It depends on the timing of when you built it. If you built in 2018 and sold, or 2019 and sold in 2020 or 21, you really cashed out. Like you got a really good spread. But I think 25%, if it goes down to 20, you're still safe. If it goes to 15, you're still safe.
Yeah.
Depending on the time. That's another big thing. Is it going to cost you 4 months of time to build this? In some suburban markets, you can build something in 5 months. In the city, it might take you 8 months with delays and things, with PGW not coming out to connect your gas. So the time is like, is that, 100,000 in profit, whatever, just for round numbers, is that 100,000 made in 6 months or is it made in 12 months? And that's a huge difference on ROI.
Yeah. It's basically like your maximum allowable offer. Like to your point, you're just reverse engineering. You start with your ARV, multiply it by your profit margin that you want, and then you just start subtracting holding costs, borrowing costs, building costs. Then whatever's left over, there's my maximum offer.
Exactly. It's that simple. It really is not like rocket science. We're not guessing and then hoping. It's like, it's pretty calculated how when brokers look at land, we can tell you in a heartbeat, especially when we're talking to like listing clients, right? Like, how do you know my land's worth this much? Well, here's what you can do with it. Here's the best thing you could do with it, that garage owner.
Right.
And then you're
highest
like,
and best use.
Exactly. Do you want to go through the entitlement process before you sell this and get that equity? Or do you just want to sell it as is? And this is where the education, the options are a big reason our clients use us.
Yeah.
So that's how to, understand it, how to value it, and then just building relationships. What would be the best piece of advice you guys have for meeting the architects, for getting in front of architects pretty much have the civil engineer connections, but how do you get in front of good architects? Because that's a big key piece, aside from us, that if you have a good architect who's not going to charge you like crazy amount but do quality work, it could really help you get a lot of deals done.
You know what I would do? I would go on Zillow in the neighborhood that you want to live in or build in and just go be a fan. Go literally look at like, that's a sick house. That's a sick house.
Who developed
and you're going to start to see a trend. Oh, this guy built it. This guy designed it. Same guy, same girl, right?
Yep.
And you'll be like, okay, I'm going to call that guy.
Yeah. That's a really good piece of advice.
And if you don't have the ability to like find out who built it, call the agent that sold it, and they would, and they'll tell you.
And is their name on permits if you can go onto a public site? Typically, the architect is your
contractor.
Sometimes if it's new construction, you're going to be able to pull the contractor on the permit. You could literally just drive there and go look at the permit
on the sheet.
But I agree with Nick. Just call the agent. They were going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be the easiest.
It's always easy. Yeah. I think it's very helpful for a lot of the people we talk to and a lot of the viewers that we have. And if there's any serious questions about getting into this process, you can contact us on our social media. All of our stuff's in the descriptions down below. Same with Chris. So there's a lot of factors, but if there's ever a serious deal that you're looking to pencil out, bring it to us. We can help you value it, run those comps, run the costs, and get you guys started with little to no risk, hopefully, where we get a seller who's willing to take a DD of 60 days and give us the time to do it. So,
and at the end of the day, we all just love real estate wholeheartedly. So it's like, you got a deal, run it by us.
Definitely. Whether it works or it doesn't. I can't tell you how many of these I do.
You know?
Exactly. It can't hurt ever. But all good. Any final remarks?
Just like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing and you want to be more informed with your real estate purchases and decisions. Like and subscribe.
That's it. Thank you for joining us again, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Till next time.